It's our first episode of 2025. We start talking about New Year's resolutions. We end up on a quote with some funny words, and then we riff on it for 20 minutes. Welcome to 2025 on To Be the Church. Welcome to the To Be the Church podcast, where we explore what it looks like to truly be the church in today's culture. First episode of the year 2025.
Nice.
Yeah, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you, Tyler?
Good. Are you a New Year's resolution type of guy?
Ish.
Yeah, what do you got going on this year?
But dude, it's funny because I kind of started in like November usually. Like I usually start, there's a bunch of birthdays in our family, including my wife, my oldest daughter, my third oldest daughter, like late October, early November. And then you're October, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, dude, how about me knowing when your birthday is? Ish.
I appreciate that.
So it's quite a moment there to start the year. One of my New Year's resolutions. No. I normally get really reflective, and then at that time of year, because all their birthdays happen, and then you go into like my anniversary here at the church, like for how long we've been here is like late November, early December, and then my birthday is in January here, like in like next week. So it's like I turn another year older. It's another year of being at the church. My wife turns another year. So I get in this reflective mode early November, and then all through the holidays. And so I normally start new workout programs or getting, like shoring stuff up. So a lot of my sort of annual goals and that kind of stuff happens around that time of year, and then I shift through it. So specific stuff, dude, I got to get organized, man. Like, and you and I were talking before we started here, but like my assistant, Carrie, she's was kind of like decorated the office at my office here for Christmas. There's like these Christmas decorations. So she was like decorating that. And then she was taking down those decorations and kind of storing them in the cabinets in the office. And one of the cabinets in my office had diapers in it, like actual like clean diapers, not dirty diapers. But that's from my kids. But my youngest is 9 right now, and she's not in diapers for the record. But those are diapers that have probably been in that spot for like a decade, right? And that it just hasn't been touched. And so that kind of lit the fire with her, the minimalist fire. And she was like, yeah, we need to purge this office of a bunch of stuff. And so we've been working on that and going through books and just, old files. And so, yeah, I think getting organized is probably the primary, like organized my digital files. She like looked at all the content on my, like all my folders, with my computer and stuff. And she's like, do you have this stuff backed up? And I'm like, for 20 years, I'll wake up in the middle of the night at like 2 a.m. and be like, I haven't backed up my file sufficiently. Think about how like, if something crashes, how my life's work is gone. That's that constant low grade tension fear that I live in, dude, because I'm not organized and I just need to get it done. So, hey, Cody, I think Carrie's going to ask you about like the best hard drive external to back up with or something. So be ready for that question. Anyway.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's probably the primary one. That's low hanging fruit there.
Yeah. Nice. I don't like this year's been a bit different where I haven't sat down and been like, this is it. Like these are the 5 things or whatever. I usually do that. I actually told Katie on Monday, I was like, I need to take some time to journal today, just like, because I haven't like done that like beginning of the year, like kind of like, where am I at? Where do I want to be type stuff. There are a few things though, and they revolve around building habits. And so I'm going to like pick back up that book, Atomic Habits by James Clear, that he kind of talks to kind of some of the just kind of the way your brain works as it relates to habits and building better habits. I think this is the year, like we've done like different Bible plans with the kids and stuff like that, but nothing nothing that they've had to own, if you will. And so, yeah, Katie and I were talking, and I think our girls who are 10 and 14, like we're going to set aside a specific amount of time for them, the 4 of us, to read through the New Testament. And just like, it won't take a year obviously, but just like everybody has their own, like they do it on their own, like they own it. And then we sit down and talk about it. And so that's like probably the biggest one for us. As a family, I say as a family, that doesn't include our 2 younger boys who one can read kind of, but yeah. So, and then, yeah, there's the normal stuff where it's like, I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat better. Yeah. The stuff that I say every January.
It's funny, dude. I think that I like how you say building habits, because that's kind of what I've, the way I've approached New Year's since I used to do like write out all these goals and stuff like that. And I wouldn't not necessarily New Year's resolutions, but but goals, and that'd be the time of year I really assess all them. But I think establishing and reestablishing habits, like I work out pretty regularly, but I've got a, there's like kind of something about January, and I think, dude, after the holidays and you eat all sorts of crap, and there's something about January for me that always is like, all right, I'm going to double down on like, staying on a specific program and getting through it for 1, 2, 3, month 1, month 2, month 3, or whatever. And so, so that kind of stuff, I'm definitely engaged in that. There's just an adrenaline, of a new year. And it was funny, like Sunday, we had a oddly large attendance at both here at East Vancouver and at a couple of our other churches in the family of churches. And it's hilarious to see, the first Sunday of the year. It's like the athletic club for for Christians. Show up. You're like, hey, dudes, how's it going?
Well, that reminds me, actually, I wasn't even thinking about talking about this, but Stephen, the lead pastor at Heritage Park, he posted on his Instagram story this quote about the new year. And then a couple days later, I was like looking for it. So I asked him to text it to me. And so it's this from Duke Kwan. He said, "The notion of the new year is itself pure grace. Interminable linearity of time would be an insufferable curse to fallen creatures such as us, who are desperate for new beginnings. That today is some kind of day one is a gift." And it's like, that's an interesting quote, but like...
What was the phrase in the middle?
Interminable linearity. So, like...
I think it might be interminable.
I don't know.
Linearity, yeah. I'm looking this up.
I mean, he's a Duke, so... Yeah. He knows more than I do.
Interminable definition. Here we go. Endless.
Yeah.
So often used hyperbolically.
Yes.
So, as it was in this quote. So, interminable, I think it's interminable.
Yeah,
interminable, and then what is the...
Wait, here we go.
Interminable.
Dude, we're starting off the year well. Interminable, what was the second phrase?
Being linear.
Linearity?
Yeah.
Did he say linearity?
Yeah.
Okay. Dude, Cody, if this podcast is not called Interminable Linearity, like what are we doing here? So, endless linearity, right? Yeah. That he said that would be a curse.
An insufferable curse to fallen creatures such as us who are desperate for new beginnings.
Oh. Yeah. I see why you asked him for that quote. That's pretty epic quote, dude. Like, that would be insufferable.
Well, I was doing announcements this past Sunday, and I talked about New Year's resolutions, and so I was thinking maybe that quote would help me, like, kind of like wrap my mind around it, and like I could use it. And I read it once, I was like, nah.
Yeah, because people are like, what just happened in announcements? I think that's good, dude. We could riff on that quote for a while. There's that what's that Greek mythology parable or the Greek myth of the dude who's pushing the rock up the hill constantly, and then it just rolls back down. It's a famous Greek myth.
Sisyphus.
Yeah, exactly. Sisyphus was punished by the gods for cheating death twice by being forced to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity. And that to me is the when I hear interminable linearity, that is insufferable, I think of Sisyphus. That it's like repeating that same thing over and over and over again. Yeah.
There's a guy, he was real Twitter famous for a while in the Christian world, and he wrote wrote a few books, but one of his books, I don't remember the title of it, but essentially the whole premise of the book was that, like, when we're chasing our goals, like, we give up whenever we mess up. And he's like, the day you start, like the New Year's Day or whatever, is not the most important day. The idea of stacking days where it's like you're doing the same thing over and over, that's really important. He's like, but like what separates people who achieve their goals from people who don't is what you do the day after perfect. Is what he called it. And so it's just like, because I mean, I've been there where it's like I'm on a new eating plan, and then somebody's like, you want to go to this pizza place? And I'm like, I eat the pizza, and then the next morning I'm like, I might as well have a toaster strudel since I ate pizza yesterday. And then it's just It's all ruined. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Though, like that. It's like,
It's
but
true.
like what people like do that are mature is they don't eat the toaster strudel. They say, okay, yesterday was not perfect. I'm back to my habits today, or
Yeah.
you know. And I think that I don't know. I think about that towards the beginning of every year. There's a commercial on TV right now that talks about there's a specific name for the second Friday in January because it's
I've seen that.
Yeah, it's because that's when most New Year's resolutions have died. Is by then. It's like literally.
That's the day this comes out. Yeah. Second Friday in January.
You're right. Yeah. It's that day. I don't remember what they called it in the Toyota commercial or whatever, but
Quit day or something.
Yeah,
I've seen
something.
that.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. There's this reality. There's beauty in the beginning, in the ability to start new, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the grace for a new beginning on January 12th or whatever it is,
Man, and Ty, I really think that
January 10th.
Yeah, I think that I was reading Romans 4 today in my Bible reading program, New Year's resolution, the blended plan. I'm reading the blended plan again this year. I found it, 1517.org is like a thing. And I found it last year and read through it. And it's like, I did the McShane Bible reading program for years and years and years, which is sort of this amalgamation of New Testament, Old Testament. I think you do the New Testament twice, the Old Testament once, and it's a Bible reading program. And you're doing, the thing that I like about it is you're doing like 2 chapters from Genesis and like a chapter from Luke or whatever, you know. So it's New Testament, Old Testament every day, which is kind of cool because a lot of times you see in the way it's arranged like all the connections of the unity of Scripture. But the blended plan is similar. It's just it's a little, I don't know. I kind of like it a little better than the McShane one lately. So I'm doing that plan, and you can find that on the Bible app or whatever, but I print it out and try to do, this is a big one. And this is like just a habit that I'm sort of doubling down on here. It's a very redundant phrase, redoubling down. But I'm doubling down on this thing of like getting up in the morning and like, when do you first look at your phone in a new day?
Me?
Yeah.
After I shower.
Okay.
I'm
So you wait, yeah.
Yeah.
But you have a specific time that you kind of wait till. Like it's not a time on the clock. It's just
No.
you have a routine in the morning that doesn't include your
Yeah.
phone.
I wake up, I take my Apple Watch off, I go take a shower, I come back, then I look at stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, so it's like, it is very early, like in my day. Yeah.
Yeah, and my thing is like trying to push that initial like moment of a screen later and later in the day. So trying to as late as it can be. Now on a day off, you know, I think we've talked about recently on the podcast here, kind of our no phone Fridays we've been trying to do at home. We did that through the fall. It was actually great and really great to where everybody's phones and that kind of stuff is all off for the whole day Friday. And it's just like, it clears your head as a family. And, but this is like, you know, on a work day or whatever, if I have to be out early or have an early appointment, there's obviously you got to get all your stuff and go and whatever. But yeah, trying those first few hours of the day or first, you know, in the Bible read. So reading the physical Bible and, you know, and maybe other books that I'm working through early in the morning before people get up, making breakfast, you know, kind of beginning the family day. I'm working out in the morning usually. And so kind of getting all that done. And then right before I have to like get out the door and you know, whether it's get out the door to start in my study over our garage or it's get out the door for coming into the office, then, you know, I'm looking at the phone to make sure appointments are on schedule and whatever else. But trying to move that later and later and later so that like first thing in the morning, you're not like that idea of the tyranny of the urgent.
Mm-hmm.
You've heard that you're not drawn. There was a book that came out years ago called Don't Check Your Email in the Morning. I never read it. but like the title alone, you're like, there's something there.
Well, you read a title like that, and you're like, I don't have to read this book. I know what it says.
You're like, you made a mistake, editor, so author, publisher. So, but the idea was because it's like it pulls you into reactive mode earlier, and the earlier you get on something where you're getting notifications constantly, the more reactive you're going to be. Even if you're very disciplined to be like, I'm not going to react to that right now. I don't need to respond to that yet. I think for me, I just trying to keep that out of my head to not open those circuits. But dude, what I was reading in Romans 4, I got so far off of that train of thought. What was the line? It was talking about the faith of Moses and the grace that was, you know, the grace kind of context of that faith. I'm literally scrolling through Romans 4 right now. Yeah, okay. That is why verse 16, he gives this whole argument, the gospel, the law, Moses, or not Moses, did I say Moses? Abraham, right? Abraham's faith. That is why it depends on faith, in order that the promise may rest on grace and be guaranteed to all his offspring. That verse by itself, dude, like talking about the faith of Abraham, which earlier in the text it says like he did not waver, And I was just like, man, what? Wow. But that is why it depends on faith. So all of this depends on faith, but in order that the promise may rest on grace. So it depends on faith because the promise is resting on grace, right? And be guaranteed to all his offspring. I think what got me onto that was your thing about like, it's the day after screwing up, because it's true with New Year's resolutions. It's true with your new diet. It's true with all that stuff. But dude, it's super true as it relates to our walk with the Lord, right? That it's like sin, we have this train we have this track that we're on and we're going to serve the Lord or whatever else. And it's our response to sin that really defines it, right? Do we walk in faith knowing that the promise depends on grace? And so we continue, or does our sin move us to a point of despair or to a point of just continuing to gratify the flesh and just like, well, I can't be perfect. So, I'll just keep going that direction. Right. And if it does, we've got the whole reality of salvation by grace through faith mixed up, right? Because it is not those works that justify you. That doesn't mean you don't seek to do good works and seek to like serve the Lord, but you do it from that place of faith, knowing that the promise rests on grace and is guaranteed to all his offspring. And so I think that I just think in the new year too, dude, there's like people who are doubling down now and coming back like, I'm going to go to church more. I'm going to gather with the body. I'm going to do these things until those besetting sins hit. And then it's like, those things tend to drive people from community. Like, oh, I can't go this week after, the week I've had, or I shouldn't, and I don't want to deal with this because I don't want to deal with my sin. I don't want to deal with accountability. I don't want to deal with confessing this and repenting. And so that can really drive us from community. So anyway, I just, those are sort of some initial New Year's thoughts of, and when you said that, it threw me back to Romans 4 of like, dude, that's what we do with our walk with the Lord, that we sin. And then, instead of leaning in there and confessing and repenting and allowing the Lord to heal us and change us and grow us, we can tend to like hide from it like we would from the new diet after you eat the pizza. And what was it? A toaster strudel?
I have a few very specific go-to junk foods whenever I'm spiraling. I mentioned the book Atomic Habits. I looked up some of the quotes from it from when I read it the first time. And one of them is, it says, the first mistake is never the one that ruins you. Now, I mean, that's a very big generalization. Sometimes there are first mistakes that can ruin you.
You want to bet?
But it's the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. Missing once can be an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. And then one other thing that's really interesting, and kind of you were going back to like your aim to not look at the phone in the morning, right? And as you were talking about that, I was looking at these quotes and I read this and I was like, oh, this is like super true. James Clear in that book says, when scientists analyze people who appear to have tremendous self-control, it turns out those individuals aren't all that different from those who are struggling. Instead, disciplined people are better at structuring their lives in a way that does not require heroic willpower or self-control. So there's a few ways that plays out to all the things we're talking about. One, like, you're not going to get on the cycle of, oh, I have to fix all this stuff, or these are all the problems I have to engage today. If you're self-controlled enough to not look at your phone, right? If you're setting up your life, structuring your life in a way that does not require you to have heroic willpower and self-control. And then also, as it relates to sin, I mean, that's a very true statement where, how difficult is it to fall into major sin if you never put yourself in a position to do so, right? Like, you don't have to have heroic willpower or massive self-control if you're not there, if you're not at that spot. Anyway, we actually were going to talk about something else today, but this seems like a good topic for January.
Yeah, exactly.
The beginning of January.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm back on interminable linearity. I can't quit it. So anyway, that's excellent. Yeah, dude. So that's I don't know what else you got. You got anything else on New Year's resolutions? I think we might be at the place to keep the habit of keeping these. Cody, where are we at? 20 minutes. We're right there.
Yeah. Well, we've never asked you to drop anything in the comments except for your questions, but let us know what your New Year's resolutions are. We'd love to read them. Have a great week.